गेस्ट सभागार में पधार चुके हैं। मैं प्रोफेसर हिमांशु प्रसाद राय, सेंटर फॉर पॉलिटिकल स्टडीज, JNU, प्रोफेसर अमृत कौर बसरा, डिपार्टमेंट ऑफ हिस्ट्री, दिल्ली कॉलेज ऑफ आर्ट्स एंड कॉमर्स, DU, डॉक्टर भुवन झा, एसोसिएट प्रोफेसर, डिपार्टमेंट ऑफ हिस्ट्री, DU, डॉक्टर वरुण गुलाटी, एसोसिएट प्रोफेसर, डिपार्टमेंट ऑफ इंग्लिश, यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ दिल्ली, और प्रोफेसर ज्योति त्रेहान शर्मा, ज्वाइंट डायरेक्टर, सेंटर फॉर इंडिपेंडेंस एंड पार्टीशन स्टडीज, DU को डाइस पर आमंत्रित करना चाहता हूँ। एक जोरदार तालियों से हमारे अतिथियों का स्वागत करेंगे। एक बार पुनः आप जोरदार तालियों से हमारे आदरणीय प्राचार्य महोदय प्रोफेसर सोलोनी गुप्ता का स्वागत करेंगे। अब मैं इस मंच को प्रोफेसर हिमांशु राय सर को आमंत्रित करना चाहता हूं, क्योंकि इस पैनल डिस्कशन के ये चेयर है। तो सर, आप जैसे निर्देश करेंगे उस तरह से, तो मैं आपको ही आमंत्रित करना चाहता हूं।
Good afternoon, colleagues and students. Principal Professor Saloni Gupta, an old acquaintance and friend, काफ़ी decades से, Amrit Basra, knowing her for decades again, then Bhuvan Jha, knowing him for decades, and then Jyoti Trahan, knowing her for decades. So all old team here. And Varun Gulati, of course, I met him here. So we have some enough time, interesting theme. Without wasting much of a time, we'll discuss on the partition, how it all began. And I invite from Varun, the first, to speak for 15 to 20 minutes. And then we'll shift to another Bhuvan or Amrit. And then at the end, we'll have question-answer sessions. So expect the students and the faculty to have some questions. Do not hesitate to answer even very blunt, critical question. आपको लगता है कि आलोचना करनी चाहिए जो हम लोग बोल रहे हैं, आप बेशक अपने ऑब्जर्वेशंस आलोचना करें। सजेशंस अगर हो तो आप सजेशंस दें। दैट्स द पर्पस ऑफ दिस एकेडमिक डिस्कोर्स, बट दैट विल बी एट द एंड। वी हैव टाइम एनफ। सो वरुण जी, प्लीज।
Indeed, an honor to be here, and chair of this session, Professor Himanshu Roy. We have few things in common. You came from Delhi University to JNU. I teach in Delhi University. You teach in JNU and I stay in JNU. So these are the two things that we have in common. Madam Principal Saloni ji, thank you for inviting me, and my colleagues. Let me just set my time watch. It's 12:40 and I will sharply leave at 12:55. So without further ado, let me begin by recalling Jean-Luc Nancy. In one of the very seminal work, The Inoperative Community, it's a 1986 published work, I would invite all of you to read that, describes that our modern world is marked by fragmentation and dissolution. I think as far as India's partition is concerned, this is one of the key phrases to understand. Because partition of our country, though it had been almost 75 years behind us, is one of the history's starkest metaphors for fragmentation, political, social, and emotional. Numerous books we have seen, we have read, that describes this tragic event of partition. Each presents its own unique perspective. For instance, Bipin Chandra's The Making of Modern India. Tapan Ray Chaudhary's The Partition of India, Politics Without Plans. William Dalrymple's The Viceroy House. V.P. Menon. The list is really, really exhaustive. I will not go into that, but they make us as readers aware the chaos of such hurried decision and vanquishing empires. But my argument, sir, my argument is a bit different. I believe the partition of 1947 is more than a historical event. It is a symbol of unresolved trauma and the failure of communal coexistence. Let me just draw back before the British domination. And I would like to draw back you towards the Hindu-Muslim unity we had. It wasn't a myth at all. What a wonderful syncretism we had. We celebrated the festivals like Ganesh Chaturthi together, initiated by the great leaders of our country. And so, Muharram. In fact, the Nawab of Awadh is a wonderful example of this culture of pluralism. The Nawab Wazid Ali Shah is recorded to celebrate Janmashtami, and his court composers wrote devotional songs. He was a Krishnite. But what happened after 1857 mutiny? The Brits saw this unity as a potential threat, and then entered their strategic policy called divide and rule. And by 1940-70, this strategic nurturing of communal divide had fractured our society beyond repair. Literature also reflects. I am a student of literature. I read Midnight Children of Salman Rushdie. I read Amitav Ghosh's The Shadow Lines, Khushwant Singh's Train to Pakistan, and so on and so forth. They all tell us the idea of borders. But there is a limitation. Even as a student of literature, I acknowledge fiction very often conveys what official records omit. And so, these omissions are very, very telling. They are very, very telling. So what is the role of the Brits? Very subtle and very pivotal. They blasted the Muslim League, stalled Congress, let Jinnah rise, particularly during the World War II. And not beyond fictional narratives. My initial argument is to examine the role of conspiracy theories in making the partition. I would like to draw your attention. It was 1932, the Round Table Conference, a very seismic event in the history of South Asia. And a year later, the term Pakistan, it wasn't Pakistan, please remember, it was Pakistan. It was first coined by Chaudhry Rahmat Ali in a pamphlet which was distributed at University of Cambridge. The pamphlet titled, Now or Never, Are We to Live or Perish Forever? Now, What is this? Rahmat Ali's choice of this acronym was a sheer ideological act, because Pakistan, P stands, what he crafted for Punjab, A for Afghanistan, K for Kashmir, that gave us a terrible pain to our country, this craft, Sindh, S, and STN for Baluchistan. And it simultaneously had the Persian word called Pak, which means pure. A sanctity to this separation, that means. 1933, 1947, that too in Cambridge University. Now this toxic potency of such narrative lies not merely in the lexical coinage. ये केवल शब्दों का भ्रम नहीं है, शब्दों का मायाजाल नहीं है. It has transformed a personal political fantasy into an irresistible myth. Roland Barthes in Mythologies explains, and I quote, words initially contingent and private are refined into public truths through power and perception, unquote. शब्दों को जो पहले प्राइवेट होते हैं उनको रिफाइन किया जाता है और बाद में एक शाश्वत सत्य बना दिया जाता है. Edward Said also in Orientalism said so. Knowledge of the Orient creates the Orient. Gandhi in Hind Swaraj said, the British did not rule us. We allowed them to rule. हमने उनको रूल करने दिया है. So the narrative of conspiracy, which was framed by Chaudhry Rahmat Ali, not Khan, which was nurtured at Cambridge University, it wasn't a political vision, but it was a textual construct. The cost was immense. You have seen in the picture. Between 1946 to roughly 1941, 15 million people displaced. They were slaughtered, butchered on the streets. मुझे नहीं पता, मेरे परिवार ने सफर किया है. आप में से किसी के किया, I can't say. 6 of my family members, they were brutally raped, murdered. This was the immense result. Punjab literally bled. What Amrita Pritam says to Ware Shah, somebody has mixed poison in the river. वारे शाह को कहती है कब्र से उठो, देखो पंजाब की हालत क्या हो गई है. This is the result of such narrative, toxic narrative. And after the partition of India, the most traumatic events in the modern history, in 2009 published book, Cambridge University published book, The Partition of India, it records 15 to 18 million people migration, largest migration so far. So such was deep scar we had. Due to the paucity of time, I would now like to move towards my second argument. And this is from the official records of the Brits. It's not my personal statement. It had been decided, I am quoting, that the event of Britain withdrawing from India, the strategic control of Northwest would be secured by prompting a Muslim-dominated state, Pakistan, which would be amendable to British and later American interests, unquote. The British documents state so. So let me make you aware that it is redirecting our attention to the geopolitical imperatives of the British Empire in the twilight of the World War II. And let me cite once again from the British Cabinet Memorandum. What do they say? In the event of war with the Soviet Union, we shall require the use of air bases in the northwest of India, unquote. This single sentence, Mr. Chair, encapsulates the Cold War anxieties that had begun to take root out even before the formal declaration of hostilities between the West and the Soviet Baltic. So my argument is that the British strategically planned it. They saw it a great potential with the USSR, and which is now the modern day Pakistan. They saw it as a crucial theater for their intelligence, logistics, and air power projection. Now, whether fortunately and unfortunately, I won't say, but the British were remarkably meticulous in their documentation. बहुत अच्छा document करते थे. आज पता नहीं वो रो रहे होंगे बेचारे. But archival material from the Oriental and the Indian collection of the British Library, the Mountbatten papers at the University of Southampton, the Public Record Office in Kew, archives of the United States Department, all reveal that the British were the main culprit of this partition. Their own documents, I am not saying anything. So to me, this was a geopolitical reframing. And it offered a compelling counterpart to both the Muslim and Congress, League narratives. One more, and then just 2 minutes left for me. The second point, the other point which I would like to mention is the role of Lord Mountbatten, the then Viceroy of India. I mean, in the mainstream narrative, you would see that he is often portrayed as a very neutral statesman, committed to the peaceful and equitable to the British rule. What do their documents say? Let me quote from British official communication, which was dated 13 May 1945, well before Mountbatten arrived in India. Mountbatten had been briefed in London before taking up his assignment. His job was not to hold India together, but to ensure the protection of British interests after withdrawal. Unquote. So this is the advancement of the partition. And advancement also took, place. Earlier it was planned in 1948, but then it was rescheduled in 1947. Why did they compress this deadline? They knew that we had a very vulnerable population. We can also go through the role of Churchill, Jinnah, and the fabrication of such things. But let me tell you, they are not coincidental things. They were part of very, very geopolitical calculations. And what I started in the beginning, fragmentation and dissolution, it culminates in the chilling insight. And the chilling insight what? That post-97, how quickly we know Pakistan became the recipient of Western military aid. It got the membership of SEATO, South Asian Treaty Organization, CENTO, Central Treaty Organization, which was mutually a security organization for the World War II, after the Cold War, composed by Turkey, Pakistan, and the United Kingdom. And this alliance was formed to counter Soviet influence in the Middle East and served as a link chain to the strategic defense of the Soviet Union. So Pakistan, the partition of India was not just a tragic byproduct of communal tension, but it was meticulously crafted geopolitical maneuver which serves the imperial interests. And the British, who anticipated the Cold War, sought to regain this strategic leverage through a Muslim majority buffer state. Fictions, archives, oral histories, they all together weave this transformation and fragmentation, which was manufactured, not inherited. And so I do say that partition of India was an act of neo-imperialism, where formal sovereignty masks the underlying dependence. Sir, it's 12:56. I'm sorry I took 1 minute extra.
I like the concept and an excellent academic presentation. So now I invite, we'll have some question answer as students. Amrit. Huh?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very happy to be here. My friends are also here.
Please note down your questions.
I must compliment your principal, Professor Saloni Gupta, and CIPF, and our chairperson, and of course, co-panelists and students. I will start with the observation that the topic decided is very well-rounded: borders and boundaries, displacement, identity, and resettlement. It really helps us in locating and also establishing the contour of those days when on 14th of August 1947, Pakistan was created, and India on 15th of August 1947 won its independence. This is the one major identity marker created by borders and boundaries which we need to remember. Now my earlier panelist has given us some kind of, you could say, indicators, talking in terms of who caused this, why it was being done. As a student of history and the one who is involved in the research on Punjab, and as a Sikh who has been part of the entire trauma processes, wherein these borders and boundaries are going to exist forever. But then, historical context must not be forgotten. Of creating discursive spaces, apportioning blame on who did it and who didn't, and talking in terms of general narration of communal harmony, it's important to establish historical facts. And in terms of ongoing researches, we have come a long way. Center for Independence and Partition Studies is, one can say, the initiative taken by the University of Delhi, our Honorable Vice Chancellor, after, you can say, when our Honorable Prime Minister made it clear that 14th August must be remembered at Partition Horror Remembrance Day. So I will accept and I will kind of posit this one basic observation, that when an Honorable Prime Minister talked about this context, then automatically, I hope, and we have young students here, belonging to various disciplines, must be studying, if those are from social sciences and humanities, must be aware about that India got partitioned, and there is existing narration there. So I feel that now with this, you can say, observation of Honorable Prime Minister, this partition has entered national consciousness. It means that the event we do not live in past, but the past is not to be forgotten. So this is the one basic observation. Then when we make an understanding or make an attempt to understand this process, the entire process, that is linked with the growth of independent nation by those who lost their land on 14th of August, and by 17th August, Red Cliff Mission was made public. They were wrongly termed as refugees, but we must remember we lost part of our motherland, and that became Pakistan. So it was the displaced population that came from one part of India that became Pakistan to India, and their success, their hard work, their memories, their sufferings are entwined with the making of modern India. This must be remembered. Second important issue is that since we are, as students of history, we are always being not so much kind of driven by emotions and these constructed ideas, rather we are driven by source of history. So state narration, whether we desire it or not, again remain predominant. But here we feel that we must remember that the people of India suffered this trauma. So while the making of nation and who caused it at political end must not be forgotten, but the lost voices of people who suffered, who for a very long period of time have carried their memories with themselves, with their families, with their community, society, and now with nation, must be brought into public spaces. Now here there are kind of, we at SIP are making an attempt and more than 40 interviews have been kind of recorded, and fortunately we have recordings by those who among them who suffered not only 47 but later on 1984 also. So that becomes very much important. At an international global level, we have many universities, many oral archives have been kind of open, literature is being produced, past is getting recaptured, and many those who were not part of it, they are also writing it. Politics of writing is also being there. So that has created many issues and you can say problems for us. For instance, at California, we have a partition archive. More than 20,000 to 200 interviews have been taken. I read few of them and realized that those who undertook this interview, they had no inkling about the people whom they were interviewing, and they did not know about the place from where people had been dislocated. And there have been memories of people who are remotely not connected with what had happened during that period, and how in the aftermath of that process has suffered. So a word of caution for all of us, anything written about partition is not to be accepted as historical fact. Voices are there, they can be recovered, and therein comes the main issue that we must not forget the basic fact that those who got displaced, many of them became identity marker in independent India. They served it. 2 prime ministers came from that. Many governor generals, when you can say many governors, politicians, administrators, doctors, engineers, and journalists for that matter. So their voices are being there. And they are there in form of newspapers writing, memoirs, autobiographies, biographies, oral narrations. So on the basis of that, one needs to understand and develop what I like to see as a whole perspective. Whole is a troubled word, but a proper perspective driven by time and space. So with that, we start with the kind of, you can say, the making of borders and boundaries. So one can, since I work on Punjab, so I can always start from 3rd of March, when Master Tara Singh had opposed the whole idea of whole of Punjab being given to Pakistan, and he had also declared that this is how you can say the Punjab decision had to be taken, that Punjab had to be divided. Unfortunately, where in no place, even when Muslims were in majority, but there was no any space except from a few areas where Sikh agriculturists were in domination. No part could be identified as totally being dominated by Muslims. Boundaries could have been decided in terms of river boundaries, Ravi, that did not happen. And then eventually what happened that there was a kind of arbitrary decision. So on 3rd March onward, Lahore started burning, Multan started burning, Amritsar simultaneously organized violence happening, and historical records tells us that as far as the military was concerned, this was the British policy, 90% of police personnel were Muslims. And then you had Baloch armed, you can say, army units who organized themselves with the support of unfortunately British district commissioners and officials, turned their blind eye to the massive butchering that was taking place. So with that one would say, and of course, National Guards of Muslim leagues were being there. So in all parts of Punjab, you can say the killing in a very organized way started. Houses were burned, young girls were kind of identified, brutally either murdered, kidnapped, trains were stopped. It became almost difficult to come from Lahore to Amritsar, which is only 35 minutes, you can say, journey. Not on foot, not on train. Every area, every train station was targeted. We had horrible instances like at Thok Khalsa in Rawalpindi, where more than 90 girls prefers to die than to fall into the hands of, you can say, raiders. And then you had trains after train at Dera Ghazi Khan for that matter, deliberately train direction was kind of diverted, 3,000 men were killed, thousands of girls were kind of kidnapped, paraded naked, and they were distributed as trophies. So these were the important, you can say, and then of course, I've read debates in the Constituent Assembly. Independent nation had one important, like we had become independent, we had to be democratic. So you can say discussions were going on. But Durga Deshmukh was one of the raised her voice and said that it was more important, equally important, to talk about those who were losing their lives. And thereafter, there's a confession coming from government side that till September, they had very little information about the kind of butchery that was taking place. In India, at Delhi, government was much more organized. Every step was taken to ensure that those who were kind of, don't think I'm biased, but those who were votaries of Pakistan, and then they had realized that they had to leave. They wanted to leave, but then the protection was extended to us. From Pakistan, no information was shared. They refused. And you have, you read G.D. Khosla's stern reckoning. He was being appointed at the instance of Pandit Nehru, and he had covered day-to-day events, showing that how massive butchery took place. All finances, all wealth, gold was being simply stolen. We have Mahashaya Krishna, who was the very eminent editor of a newspaper, and then Pratap, and he tells us he was in Lahore. They had kind of paper, printing paper worth more than 1.5 lakhs, yet nothing was given to them. Only surety of 7,000 was returned to them. So this is how everything was being stolen. So automatically displacement became a reality. Now what I feel that sources are being there, but an intensive research has not been done. So displacement survival was a big issue. It was not possible. From transit camp to camp, then identification, then getting army, you can say support, security, that became more prominent after September. Between end September to December, there was regular train, you can say train going from India to Pakistan or Pakistan to India. Then victims could come in. But the struggle was immense. And you read the narratives of those days, we find that unfortunately, when millions, more than 1 crore migrated, and from Punjab, massive, from West Bengal, as it happened geographically in terms of demographic pattern also, in Eastern Bengal, the population of Hindus was very little, very less. And the migration started much after August, by September onward. But here, there was no looking back. Nobody was letting them stay there also. We have narration where you can say survive, those who want to survive, they're willing to accept Islam also. But they were simply being killed. So, and of course, the Nawab of Bahawalpur simply vanished. And the army, you can say police was simply not being there. So, survival became difficult, but then it goes to the credit of that generation. And those people who got displaced, they preferred not to beg from anyone. They were willing to work. You can say they took up menial jobs. We have narration from Delhi where we say that how in old Delhi, in Chandni Chowk, shops would open by after 11. So early morning they would come with the ladies, put a vegetable, try to sell them, and this is how little earnings are being made. And we have a horrible situation. And unlike Punjab, where all religious places, schools, colleges were usurped and desecrated, and those who went from Pakistan, India, they usurped them and made them their houses, destroyed them totally. No such thing happened in India. No, nothing was. Even when houses were evacuated, they became evacuee property, but were not given. It was a proper method being adopted. So one can imagine, one can understand, you can say how hardship these are being faced. So one would say that displacement was a reality, but then displacement, one would say that had in negative negation also there were positive instances, because those who came from Punjab, they had made Western Punjab what it was. For instance, in Lahore, 80% of wealth and architectural details and residency belong to Hindus and Sikhs. In Sialkot, from where we have many eminent from Sialkot is in present-day India, the entire trade was in their hand. In Shekhupura, the entire industrial belt was being controlled by them. Agricultural acumen was with them. So they came from various parts of, from eastern Punjab to Delhi, and then their struggle became part of the growth of independent India. So in a way, we suffered because of our identity. Suddenly there was no place for us, even when we have kind of, you could say, Kuldeep Nair, very eminent journalist, he was from Sialkot, and he had written in his Tale of Two Cities that on 14th of August, it was repeatedly told that Jinnah's message was being kind of aired time and again, and it was clearly pointed out. Jinnah assured that Pakistan was being created, there was nothing to worry. and all would be living happily. But by afternoon, the family realized that they were not wanted there. So they had to move, and of course, they had many who wanted to be, who were willing to be the part of as a minority, as a sheltered minority. But it was clear that they were not to be allowed to be live there. So one needs to remember that, and of course, not to forget the worst happened with women, with children, and we, as you know, the feminist scholarship has clearly pointed out, rather brought Borders and Boundaries, this is the title of, you can say, very eminent book of Urvashi Butalia, into the public frame. But there also a word of caution. The book had come out in 1998, written from feminist prism, but they're somewhere eroding, you can say, kind of, you can say, actual lived experiences of those who suffered. So when we become too rigorous in implying, you can say, ideology to historical narration, then that doesn't tell the whole picture. So we need to be cautious about it, and then there's need to understand that how estimates that more than 75,000 women were raped, kidnapped, and many of them were being killed. And you have situations where many had nowhere to go. They lost their entire families. So automatically the state moved in. Fortunately, on a positive, one can say that being in Delhi and Delhi University, being there, responded to those traumatic times. These were the time Maurice Goyer was our Vice Chancellor. And of course, you can say the girls in IP College, one would say that did a geoman job to girls who were studying back in Lahore, and they were given admission, not only admission, syllabus was also made new, session was also being changed. And we have contemporary recordings telling us that hostels were full. Yet in one room, 7, 8 girls were being allowed to come live because there was no place for the parents, they were on footpaths. So that was a kind of a situation that happened, and of course as we go further, and it's a kind of, you can say, very inviting opening for those students who are thinking in terms of going in for 4th year. This aspect has not been done, kind of looked at in a proper perspective. Scope is there, sources are there, and of course those who are interested in doing doctoral work, it's a kind of, you could say, all records of Delhi University are there, they're well preserved. Colleges records are also being there. It's a very happy journey, one would say, that they kind of did not, of course personally trauma was shared, they could never forget that they had suffered so much, yet the kind of success continued. And I'm sure we have 100, you could say, couple of, more than I think 100 teachers from Delhi University who are now, who have served Delhi University very well, and they have their roots in Punjab, and they are in kind of, you can say, they relive it. Last point, which is very important, that we can't make distinction between state and society. Relationship is being there. Diasporic community is also being there. We don't hate people. Political questions and political, you could say, deviation are a kind of something which an individual and community cannot neglect. But we have many channels on YouTube channels coming from Pakistan where they are trying to keep alive the memory of those traumatic times by kind of, you can say, telling displaced people that their physical remains or their physical spaces are being there. Of course, it has its own trapping and problems. Once you come across people where they say that so and so got baptized or became Muslims, and this is how the religion was being lost, it becomes more of a question. Then there is diasporic community. So what I'll say, the last observation, that this issue is going to remain relevant. We need to, at the level of historiography or in terms of making slaves of Delhi University, we have now newly introduced paper Gender in Indian History, where there is a full rubric on partition and displacement and rehabilitation. From the perspective of literature, of course, literary world is totally different. It is romantic, it's postmodernist. Parallel discourse becomes more important than what the actual narration is. But nevertheless, when we pick up such chronicles, those chronicles of Sadat Manto for that matter, they wrote what in reality had happened. So there is need to make a distinction, and the historical context must not be forgotten. Thank you.
I'll request speakers to also take into account the Hindi. Some of the students may prefer a discourse or a presentation in Hindi as well, or bilingual. So Bhuvan, take into account. Lunch time है students, we are aware of it. Bore भी हो रहे होगे थोड़ा सा. But आप शांत बैठे हुए हो, ये अच्छी बात है. अगर ज़्यादा बोरियत हो तो अपना मोबाइल देखने में लग जाओ. Rather than moving out and boycotting the kind of indirectly a kind of protest that you are getting bored or something. We'll have some fascinating questions and answer sessions at the end. So be patient with us for another 15-20 minutes. Okay, Bhuvan.
Thank you, Chair Professor Himanshu Roy. Thank you, Professor Salini Gupta, for organizing this wonderful program. Thank you, Dr. Anuranjita Badwa and Dr. Shalu Kaur for contacting me and giving me this opportunity. Thank you, students, for being so patient so far. I can also see a large number of teachers of political science and Punjabi studies and history over here. That encourages us to speak better. We have seen over the last few years that there has been a lot of discussions about the traumas around partition and how people in millions got displaced, wounded, they died, they were assaulted. Some of them just simply disappeared. In Punjab, as Amrit has just pointed out now, it happened immediately. And in Bengal, it happened over a course of a large number of years, and that effectively meant the signing of the Nehru-Liaquat Ali Pact, where both Pakistan and India resolved to honor the minorities, to safeguard the minorities, which of course was not respected in Pakistan over the years. But if you look at the historical journey, यदि आप इतिहास की समीक्षा करेंगे और इसमें कुछ अलग तरह की कुछ नई बातें आती हैं जो दुनिया में 20वीं शताब्दी में या उससे पहले भी या उसके बाद में कभी देखा नहीं गया. कुछ चीज़ें जो आपको बार बार परेशान करेंगी कि भाई ऐसा क्यों हो गया, इतने कम समय में इतनी बड़ी जनसंख्या का डिवीजन करना और इतना बड़ा जोग्राफिकल, जो बार बार वरुण जी कह भी रहे थे कि एक जोग्राफिकल पॉलिटिकल रीमैपिंग करने की कोशिश हो रही थी, और इतने कम समय में. जब माउंटबेटन मार्च 1947 में हिंदुस्तान आए तो यह तो तय हो चुका था कि पार्टीशन होगा, लेकिन जून 1948 की बात कर रहे थे. तो मार्च के अंत में माउंटबेटन आते हैं हिंदुस्तान और अगस्त में पार्टीशन हो जाता है इतने कम समय में. इफ यू लुक एट द वॉल्यूम्स अराउंड द ट्रांसफर ऑफ पावर एंड इंटीग्रेशन, सब्सिक्वेंट इंटीग्रेशन ऑफ स्टेट्स, द मेन वॉल्यूम्स आर बाय वीपी मेनन, आपको लगेगा कि भाई कितना काम हो रहा था इतने कम समय में, और उसमें आप कैसे सेफगार्ड कर सकते थे जो पॉपुलेशन इधर से उधर डिस्प्लेस हो रही थी या पुश किया जा रहा था, कम्युनल राइट्स हो रहे थे. बहुत बहुत बड़ी कहानी है और आने वाले समय में भी इस पर चर्चा होती रहेगी. ऐसी चर्चा है जो कि खत्म होने वाली नहीं है, बिकॉज वर्ल्ड ओवर न्यू आर्काइव्स आर बीइंग बिल्ट अप. हिंदुस्तान में भी अभी अमृतसर में और दिल्ली अम्बेडकर यूनिवर्सिटी के कैंपस में नए आर्काइव्स पार्टीशन पर हुए हैं. उनमें कुछ गैप्स हैं, लेकिन धीरे धीरे और भी बिल्डअप होंगे. अभी आपने देखा कि पार्टीशन स्टडीज़ ने कुछ पुराने जो विक्टिम्स हैं, जो कि मे बी एट द फैग एंड ऑफ देयर लाइफ, देयर स्टोरीज आर बीइंग रिकॉर्डेड, एंड the entire country is concerned about why did the partition actually happen. और इसके जो पृष्ठभूमि में जो बात थी, जो और जिसको बार बार वहाँ पर उस समय में 1946, 45 और 1940 के बाद लगातार चर्चा हो रही थी, दो राष्ट्र के सिद्धांत को, टू नेशन थियरी, विच वॉज thoroughly false and a big fraud imposed on this country. और जब बाद में 1947 में माउंटबेटन के आने के बाद जिन्ना बार बार कह रहे थे, and he would complain that I have got a moth-eaten Pakistan, in the sense that he got a Pakistan in which the entire Punjab and entire Bengal was not given. Then he started talking about the homogeneity of Punjabi population and the homogeneity of Bengali population, and Mountbatten reminded him that you can't peddle two theories at the same time. You can't say that two communities are incompatible, and at the same time you can't say that Punjabis and Bengalis are homogeneous communities. Even Aisha Jalal in her book says that it was the same sword with which he had created Pakistan. Jinnah had demanded Pakistan, and then the same sword came haunting him now. तो बड़ा बहुत विचित्र स्थिति है कि ऐसा थियरी दुनिया में और कहीं नहीं बना। किसी भी कोई भी नया राष्ट्र, कोई भी राष्ट्र का निर्माण एक राष्ट्र से निकाल करके धर्म के सिद्धांत में नहीं बना, और ऐसा सिद्धांत जहां पर कि आप माइनॉरिटीज की चर्चा नहीं कर रहे हैं, जो मुस्लिम माइनॉरिटी प्रोविंसेज है उसकी चर्चा ना इकबाल कर रहे हैं, ना रहमत अली कर रहे हैं, ना मोहम्मद अली जिन्ना कर रहे हैं. They are deliberately leaving the issue of Muslim minority provinces vague. And till very last, till the time that Mountbatten arrives, Jinnah is not very clear about the shape of the Pakistan to come. He is deliberately keeping his vision vague so that he keeps on getting the support of UP Muslims. He keeps on getting the supports of Muslims of other areas in India. This was one of the shortest period in which such a big displacement of population took place. दुनिया में कभी और कहीं नहीं ऐसा हुआ. And British kept on insisting till the very last that they will not leave the country before partitioning it. यदि यह कह देते कि ठीक है जी मैं आप लोगों को आज़ाद करता हूं, और जैसा बार बार वरुण जी ने कहा भी ब्रिटिश पॉलिसी के बारे में कि मैं आज़ाद कर देता हूं, फिर आप रेफरेंडम कर लीजिए, प्लेबिसिट कर लीजिए, इलेक्शन कर लीजिए, जो करना हो कर लीजिए. बट यह जिन्ना का भी डिमांड था, ये चर्चिल भी सपोर्ट कर रहे थे, नई सरकार भी जो लेबर पार्टी की सरकार थी वह भी सपोर्ट कर रही थी, और कई अलग अलग तरह के रंग में उसको ढाला जा रहा था. लेकिन मूल बात यह थी कि 1945 के पश्चात जिन्ना को पाकिस्तान को लेकर के एक वीटो दे दिया गया. If you look at the Simla Conference of June-July 1945, where Jinnah insisted that all the Muslim members of the Viceroy's Council must be the League's nominees only. And ironically, Congress was represented by Maulana Azad, who was the president of the Congress, and then the Viceroy Wavell told Jinnah, okay, let us try to resolve it, that there will be one Muslim representative who will not be a League nominee, and he will not be a Congress nominee also. I will nominate that Muslim nominee, Muslim representative. And Jinnah put his foot down, nothing doing. All Muslim representatives in the Viceroy's Council in 1945 must be Muslim League's nominees only. And it was on this veto that the Simla Conference fell apart. Then the cabinet mission came after the Muslim League had won the elections decisively. वहाँ पर कैबिनेट मिशन ने शुरू में, कैबिनेट मिशन के आने से पहले नई सरकार ने वहाँ पर घोषणा की कि यदि कोई माइनॉरिटी नए पावर को या नई सरकार में अड़ंगा लगाती है, नए संविधान बनाने में अड़ंगा लगाती है, then the progress of majority will not stop. वह चलता रहेगा. The minority will not have a veto. But when the cabinet mission statement was passed और उसमें अलग अलग तरह के क्लॉजेस बने और ग्रुपिंग्स की गई, it was very clear that all Muslim majority states, including Assam, which was not a Muslim majority state, were being clubbed in a way that they can demand their separate state. तो इस तरह की चीजें चल रही है. इन्होंने रहमत अली चौधरी की बात भी कही. रहमत अली चौधरी को you will be surprised to that when he comes back to Pakistan after Pakistan is created, he is not loved by the people or the state. He is virtually thrown out. He dies in penury, and subsequently the Cambridge sent his bill of cremation, the bill of cremation to the new Pakistan government, और बहुत लंबा लिटिगेशन चला, तब जाकर के पाकिस्तान ने उसके क्रिमेशन के बिल को पास किया. So much for the person who created the name Pakistan. But much before him, Muhammad Iqbal had created that vision. मोहम्मद इकबाल और जिन्ना ने मिलकर के पाकिस्तान को के ड्रीम को रियलाइज करने की कोशिश की. दिस थियरी ऑफ टू नेशन, जहां पर कि यह मान करके चलते हैं कि हिंदू और मुसलमान बिल्कुल अलग अलग तरह के रेस बन गए, अलग अलग तरह के नस्ल बन गए, और उनके कोड्स इतने डिफरेंट हैं कि वो साथ में नहीं रह सकते हैं. इसको कितना एग्रेसिवली जिन्ना ने एडवोकेट किया, और जो भी लोग जिन्ना को जानते थे, जो उनके फ्रैटर्निटी में थे, बॉम्बे में उनके साथ वकालत करते थे, उनको ये मालूम था कि जिन्ना एक बार किसी बात पर अड़ जाते हैं तो वो सही हो या गलत हो, अड़े रहते हैं. And this was something which Mountbatten also realized. Later on in his interview with B.R. Nanda, Mountbatten ने इस बात को स्वीकार किया कि जो जिन्ना से नहीं मिला था वह इस बात को नहीं समझ सकता था कि वह कैसा आदमी था. If Jinnah is meeting Mountbatten along with Liaquat Ali or Suhrawardy and other league leaders, तो जब तक जिन्ना का इशारा नहीं होता था तो लियाकत अली अपना मुंह भी नहीं खोलते थे. 1928 में नेहरू कमेटी की रिपोर्ट तैयार हो गई. ऑल इंडिया जो ऑल पार्टीज रिप्रेजेंटेटिव कमेटी था उसमें वह पारित भी हो गया और मोतीलाल नेहरू उसको चेयर कर रहे थे कमेटी को. 2 अक्टूबर 1928 को जिन्ना थे नहीं उस कमेटी में, बिकॉज जिन्ना वॉज लुकिंग आफ्टर हिज एलिंग वाइफ इन इंग्लैंड एंड देन इन फ्रांस. उनकी पत्नी उनसे बिना कहे हुए चली गई थी इंग्लैंड और जिन्ना उनके पीछे पीछे गए और तब तक पूरा नेहरू कमेटी का मसौदा तैयार हो गया. जिन्ना ने कुछ भी मोतीलाल नेहरू के तमाम चिट्ठियों का किसी का भी जवाब नहीं दिया. मोतीलाल नेहरू 2 अक्टूबर 1928 को गांधी को एक चिट्ठी लिखते हैं कि जिन्ना में तमाम खूबियां हैं लेकिन एक बहुत बड़ी बुराई है, एक बहुत बड़ी कमी है और जिससे सारी खूबियां ढक जाती हैं. He is always afraid of losing his leadership and avoids taking any risks in the matter. This weakness often drives him to support the most reactionary proposals. Jinnah was very categorical that if there is one Muslim leader in this country, then it must be Muhammad Ali Jinnah. और कोई मुस्लिम लीडर नहीं हो. And subsequently in 1930s he kept on painting the Congress as a Hindu body and Gandhi as a Hindu leader. जब गांधी की मृत्यु होती 1948 में उनका assassination होता है तो as Governor General of Pakistan Jinnah sends an obituary and even in that obituary he refuses to call Gandhi an Indian leader. He says that Hindus have lost a great leader. So much for the man who kept on being insistent upon saying that it is only the Muslim leagues which represents the true interests of the Muslims in India and kept on denying Congress that position. Therefore, he also refrained from attacking Hindu Mahasabha directly. हिंदू महासभा को नहीं अटैक कर रहे क्योंकि उनको लगता है कि यदि हिंदू महासभा पर मैं प्रहार करूंगा फिर कांग्रेस तो बच जाएगी, फिर कांग्रेस नेशनलिस्ट बॉडी की तरह दिखेगी. So to deny Congress and nationalist flavor, he kept on insisting कि कांग्रेस हिंदू बॉडी है. इसलिए आप उस चीज को, उस कंसिस्टेंसी को बार बार देखेंगे. 1930 से 1929 के लास्ट में और 1929 में उनकी पत्नी की मृत्यु होती है और 1930 में वो इंग्लैंड चले जाते हैं और ऐसा लोगों को लगता है कि अब वापस आएंगे नहीं. In the roundtable conferences also, Muhammad Ali and other people, Iqbal, are given more importance by the British government. He takes a second fiddle. In 1934, Liaquat Ali and his wife met Jinnah in England and told him that now separate electorate and 1/3 representation has come. Please come back. The situation has improved a lot and people will listen to you. और जिन्ना के बायोग्राफर है हेक्टर बॉलिथो एंड ही सेज दैट हैड लियाकत अली एंड हिज वाइफ नॉट परसुएडेड जिन्ना टू कम बैक टू इंडिया, पाकिस्तान वुड नॉट हैव बीन क्रिएटेड. सच इंसिडेंट्स आर सो इम्पॉर्टेंट फॉर हिस्ट्री. वह आते हैं जाते हैं बट ही रिसेटल्स इन बॉम्बे. 1937 का चुनाव लड़ते हैं, 36-37 का चुनाव लड़ते हैं. And that is the turning point in India's history of India, in the history of India's partition. In 1937 elections, whose results were declared शुरू मार्च-अप्रैल में रिजल्ट आना शुरू हो गया. कांग्रेस वन 8 out of 11 provinces. 7 तो क्लियर हो गया, 8वां में कोलिशन बना. But what did Muslim League do? In the Muslim separate electorate seats, Muslim League secured only 4.8% of the votes and 109 of 482 seats. पंजाब और सिंध में बिल्कुल वाइप आउट हो गए। पंजाब में सिर्फ 2 सीट आया। इंडियन नेशनल कांग्रेस, उसने तो और सीट कम सीट कंटेस्ट किया था, इट गॉट 26 सीट्स। Both the Muslim League and the Congress had lost the Muslim confidence in 1936-37 elections. दोनों ने क्या रास्ता अपनाया? Muslim League went extremely communal, started demanding a separate homeland, started talking of cultural incompatibility of the Hindus and Muslims, और कांग्रेस ने क्या किया? नेहरू जी ने एक कैंपेन शुरू किया, मुस्लिम मास कंटैक्ट कैंपेन, और मुसरुल हसन की एक बहुत अच्छा लेख है, वो कहते हैं कि 2 साल के बाद सिर्फ 69,000 मुस्लिम इनरोल हुए। इट वॉज सच ए बैड कैंपेन, और एंड मुस्लिम्स वेर नॉट कमिंग टू द कांग्रेस। बाय 1939 थिंग्स वेर वेरी क्लियर, एंड द कांग्रेस कमिटेड द ब्लंडर ऑफ रिजाइनिंग द मिनिस्ट्रीज व्हेन द सेकेंड वर्ल्ड वॉर बिगैन, एंड द ब्रिटिश गवर्नमेंट डिड नॉट टेक द कांग्रेस इनटू कॉन्फिडेंस। कन्हैयालाल मानिकलाल मुंशी ने बाद में एक इंटरव्यू में बताया दैट कांग्रेस डिड नॉट नो हाउ टू डू बिजनेस एक्सेप्ट ऑन वेरी ड्रास्टिक टर्म्स। दे टुक ए वेरी प्रिंसिपल्ड पोजीशन कि आपने हमसे बिना पूछे हिंदुस्तान की सेना को क्यों युद्ध में झोंक दिया। उन्होंने कोई सेटिस्फैक्टरी जवाब नहीं दिया तो इन्होंने रिजाइन करना शुरू किया। It was Second World War and England was on the receiving end. इंग्लैंड की स्थिति बहुत बुरी थी शुरू के 2 सालों में, and they were frantically looking for allies. और जैसे ही कांग्रेस ने रिजाइन किया, इन्होंने लिलितगो को भी चिट्ठी लिखी और एक अनाउंसमेंट भी किया कि ये डिलीवरेंस डे है, ये थैंक्स गिविंग डे है, कि कांग्रेस मुक्त हो गया। हिंदुस्तान के 8 प्रोविंस कांग्रेस मुक्त हो गए, और उसको उन्होंने थैंक्स गिविंग भी बोला। और उन्होंने लिलितगो को यह चिट्ठी लिखी कि मुस्लिम्स, हिंदुस्तान के मुसलमान आपके साथ हैं, आपको 2 बातों का ध्यान रखना है कि दुनिया में कहीं भी यदि मुस्लिम पावर से इंग्लैंड लड़ रही है तो हिंदुस्तान की सेना का उसमें उपयोग नहीं होगा। ही इज ऑल्सो ट्राइंग टू क्रिएट ए पैन इस्लामिक इमेज फॉर हिमसेल्फ। सेकेंड, दैट द ब्रिटिश गवर्नमेंट will take proper care of the interest of Arabs in Palestine. और इस चीज को बार बार दोहराते गए, पूरे युद्ध के दौरान दोहराते रहे। जब 1937 में हार हुई तो पहली बार जिन्ना खुलकर इकबाल से मिलने गए। इकबाल चिट्ठी लिखते थे। इकबाल ने 1930 में इस तरह की बातें की थी कि हिंदुस्तान में यदि बहुत स्ट्रांग सेंटर होगा तो परपेचुअल सिविल वॉर होता है, इंडिया मस्ट हैव ए वीक सेंटर। उसके अलावा उन्होंने बोला कि जो उत्तर पश्चिम के प्रांत हैं, पंजाब है, हिंद है, सिंध है, बलूचिस्तान है और फ्रंटियर प्रोविंस है, उसको मिलाकर के एक नॉर्थ वेस्ट में एक स्टेट होना चाहिए जो बाकी इस्लामिक स्टेट से बफर का काम करेगा, बाकी जो उत्तर पश्चिम में और सेंट्रल एशिया में है। जिन्ना 21 मई 1937 को लाहौर जाते, फ्रॉम बॉम्बे टू लाहौर, और इकबाल से पूछते हैं कि हमारी इतनी बुरी हार क्यों हो गई। इकबाल कहते हैं कि आपको अपना स्लोगन बदलना पड़ेगा। आप सिर्फ मुसलमानों के सेफगार्ड की बात मत कहिए, आप ये कहिए कि मुसलमान की समस्या आर्थिक है ही नहीं। You counter Nehru by saying that the Muslims in India do not face, their problem is not economic, it is cultural. जब तक आप उसको सेपरेट नहीं करेंगे वह समस्या खत्म नहीं होगी, और वो इनकम्पेटेबिलिटी की बात बार बार कह रही। वीएन दत्ता ने बहुत अच्छा आर्टिकल लिखा है इकबाल और जिन्ना और पार्टीशन के संबंधों पे, एंड ही सेज इट वाज इकबाल हु ब्लेज्ड अ ट्रेल दैट जिन्ना फॉलोड। इकबाल conceived an idea of Pakistan and Jinnah realized it. जब 1940 के मार्च में लाहौर में रिजोल्यूशन पास हुआ पाकिस्तान का, on the sidelines of that resolution, Jinnah acknowledged his debt to इकबाल. इकबाल had passed away in 1938. उन्होंने बोला कि यदि इकबाल जिंदा रहते तो वो खुश होते कि कैसे उनके स्वप्न को हमने यहाँ पर सार्थक बनाया, सकारात्मक बनाया, उसको लेकर के सामने आए। In March 1940, during his presidential speech at the Lahore session, what does Jinnah say? Muslims are a nation according to any definition of a nation, and they must have this homeland, this territory, and this state. We wish to live in harmony with our neighbors as a free and independent people. और उसी समय में रामगढ़ में कांग्रेस का अधिवेशन हो रहा था और वहाँ पे गांधी को ये मालूम हो गया था कि जिन्ना ने इस तरह की बातें की हैं, तो गांधी कहते हैं, आई वॉन्ट टू विन जिन्ना ओवर. There was a time when there was not a Muslim whose confidence I did not enjoy. Today I have forfeited that confidence, and most of the Urdu press pours abuse on me day in and day out. In December 1943, Jinnah gave interview to a British journalist, Beverly Nichols, and then he's talking about the differences between Hindus and Muslims. Islam is not merely a religious doctrine, but a realistic and practical code of conduct and thinking in terms of life, of everything important in life. And thinking in terms of our history, our heroes, our art, our architecture, our music, our laws, our jurisprudence. In all these things, our outlook is not only fundamentally different, but often radically antagonistic to the Hindus. We are different beings. There is nothing in life which links us together. Our names, our clothes, our foods, they are all different. Our economic life, our educational ideas, our treatment of other people, our attitude towards animals, we challenge each other at every point of the compass. In September 1944, when a majority of the Congress leaders were still in jail because of the Quit India movement, and Gandhi has come out of jail, Chakravarti Rajgopalachari prepares a blueprint for a meeting between Gandhi and Jinnah. Gandhi is initially reluctant but agrees. Gandhi meeting Jinnah as many as 14 times in Bombay, and in between they wrote several letters to each other. The compilation is known as Gandhi Jinnah Talks and is readily available in PDF on internet. From the day one, Jinnah insists on telling Gandhi that Gandhi should accept that he is a Hindu leader. Gandhi said कि नहीं भाई ऐसा नहीं है, मैं तो अपनी कैपेसिटी में आया हूँ, कोई हिंदू या कांग्रेस की कैपेसिटी में नहीं आया हूँ. Gandhi tells him a very pertinent point. I think all of us should hear that कि गांधी उनको क्या कह रहे हैं. If India was one nation before the advent of Islam, it must remain one in spite of the change of faith of a very large body of her children. यदि इस्लाम के हिंदुस्तान में आने से पहले हिंदुस्तान एक राष्ट्र था, तो उसके लोग यदि धर्म परिवर्तन कर भी लेंगे तो राष्ट्र तो खत्म नहीं होगा. You do not claim to be a separate nation by the right of conquest. उन्होंने जिन्ना को बोला कि इस्लाम ने भारत पर कब्जा कर लिया, इस वजह से आप नया राष्ट्र नहीं मांग रहे हैं. But by रीजन ऑफ एक्सेप्टेंस ऑफ इस्लाम, कुछ लोगों ने इस्लाम को ग्रहण कर लिया, इसलिए आप अलग राष्ट्र मांग रहे हैं. विल द टू नेशंस बिकम वन इफ द होल ऑफ इंडिया एक्सेप्टेड इस्लाम? क्या पूरा हिंदुस्तान यदि मुसलमान बन जाएगा तो आप पाकिस्तान की मांग को छोड़ देंगे? जिन्ना हैड एब्सोल्युटली नो आंसर टू दैट. जिन्ना बार बार कहते थे गांधी को कि आप मुझे भटका रहे हैं, हमारा लाहौर रेजोल्यूशन को डाइल्यूट कर रहे हैं. आप ये कह रहे हैं कि पहले हम लोग आज़ादी की मांग करेंगे और फिर हम पाकिस्तान के मांग को देखेंगे, तो फिर बाद में आप पलट गए तो हमारा क्या होगा? इस तरह की बातें. और माउंटबेटन के बार बार कम से कम 2 या 3 बार गांधी ने ये प्रपोजल किया that if Jinnah can become the prime minister and if that can avoid partition, let us do it. But Mountbatten knew that Gandhi had lost his confidence, and what Gandhi was saying would not be seconded by Nehru, Patel or Kripalani. So Mountbatten told him कि आप उन तीनों को लेकर के आ जाइए हमारे पास, और वो तीनों भी यही बात बोलेंगे, then I will go to the press and announce. Gandhi was opposed to the working committee's resolution which accepted partition of Punjab. जैसे इन्होंने अमृत ने बोला कि मार्च 1947 में काफी दंगा फैल गया पंजाब में, और वर्किंग कमेटी ने को लगा कि अब कोई तरीका नहीं है लीग को समझाने का, तो उन्होंने पार्टीशन को एक्सेप्ट किया. गांधी जी पटना में थे, और कृपलानी अपने इंटरव्यू में बताते हैं कि मैं बार बार उनको फोन कर रहा था, जो वो डायल करने वाला फ़ोन होता है, ट्रंक कॉल वाला, और उधर बहुत आवाज़ हो रही थी, तो गांधी क्या बोल रहे हैं, गांधी क्या सुन रहे हैं, ये नहीं पता चला. बट व्हेन गांधी कम्स बैक, and in June 1947, an All India Congress Committee is organized, और वहां पर गांधी दोनों तरह की बात कह रहे हैं. वो कह रहे हैं कि ऑल इंडिया कांग्रेस कमेटी के पास पावर है वर्किंग कमेटी के रिजोल्यूशन को खत्म करने का. बट if you oppose the working committee's resolution, if you reject that resolution, then you have to nominate a new leadership. फिर आपको नेहरू, पटेल, कृपलानी, राजेंद्र प्रसाद के अलावा कुछ नया नेतृत्व लाना पड़ेगा, और मुझ में ताकत नहीं है नेतृत्व देने की. उन्होंने बहुत कैटेगरिकल पोजीशन वहां पर नहीं लिया. और जब प्रेयर मीटिंग हो रही है जून जुलाई में 1947 में, गांधी जी शाम में प्रेयर मीटिंग करते हैं, वहां बार बार इस चीज को कह रहे हैं कि इतिहास यह कहेगा कि गांधी जी चाहते तो विभाजन रोक सकते थे, लेकिन मैं कुछ कर नहीं सकता हूं, क्योंकि सिर्फ मुसलमान ही नहीं, हिंदूज और अकालीज भी मेरी बात नहीं सुने. सो व्हेन पाकिस्तान वाज क्रिएटेड, और उसका कंस्टिट्यूएंट असेंबली का उससे जस्ट 4 दिन पहले एक मीटिंग हुआ, जो इनॉग्रल मीटिंग था 11 अगस्त 1947 को, और उसमें जिन्ना एक बात कहते हैं, You may belong to any religion or caste or creed that has nothing to do with the business of the state. We are all equal citizens of one state. इस स्टेटमेंट को उठा करके कई सारे इतिहासकारों ने, राजनेताओं ने बोला कि जिन्ना बड़े सेकुलर हो गए थे, और he wanted to lay the foundation of a secular state in Pakistan. That is absolutely wrong. ऐसी कोई भी मंशा नहीं थी. उसके बाद जितने भी भाषण है पाकिस्तान में, वो सारे इस्लामिक स्टेट ही की तरफ ले जा रहे हैं, वो थियोक्रेसी की तरफ ही ले जा रहे हैं. या तो स्टेट बैंक ऑफ पाकिस्तान का इनॉग्रेशन हो, या उसका रेडियो ब्रॉडकास्टिंग सर्विस का इनॉग्रेशन हो, या कराची बार एसोसिएशन का इनॉग्रेशन हो. हर जगह इस्लामिक लॉ, इस्लामिक जुरिस्प्रूडेंस, इस्लामिक कोड ऑफ कंडक्ट की ही बात कर रहे हैं. So it is absolutely wrong to presume that Jinnah wanted to lay the foundation of a secular state for Pakistan. Is absolutely wrong. He was out and out proposing to establish a theocratic state in the neighborhood of India. Thank you so much for your patience. Thank you so much, Chair, for giving me this opportunity. And we can take up questions when we finish this session.
Three beautiful papers, excellent papers, academic papers. Bhuvan presented a historical trajectory of partition. And then Amrit was on partitions, emotions, horror stories, identity, वगैरह. The students, now your turn. Any questions or कोई observation, कोई क्रिटिसिज्म, आलोचना अगर किसी की है, कोई सजेशंस, प्लीज गो अहेड. या प्लीज. या आफ्टर दैट. ये माइक
वहीं से वो माइक ले, ये इस माइक को घुमा दीजिए और हम लोग उधर से बोल लेंगे.
No, it's all right. I can speak without mic. Yeah. My question is for Amrit ma'am. Ma'am, you mentioned that not everything that has been written about the partition can be taken as a fact. And you also mentioned Urvashi Butalia because she's taken a lot of oral testimonies and spoken word stories basically. And ma'am, we read partition studies last semester and we read about it. And not all the, basically all the official data that's been provided does not tell the full story. But when you talk about oral histories, the trauma that the people went through does affect the authenticity of the stories. So how do you figure out which story is authentic, which is completely true, and which story has been tainted by the trauma that the people went through?
You asked a very pertinent question and it's very important. Remember, when I was talking about Urvashi Butalia borders and boundaries, I made a point that it was recorded in 1998. And in her preface, she makes the introduction, one can say, she makes a distinction between history and memory. The point is that there is no such a dichotomy between the two. one must remember, and as a student of history, when we conduct oral narratives also, it's a very kind of a difficult exercise. We have to be tabula rasa. We can't go without our priorities and biases for that matter. But at the same time, we must have understanding about the location of a person who is going to be interviewed and his or her life journey. Some indicator we must be knowing in historical context. So what happens when we start locating, identifying and kind of a source, then that source has to be interpreted. So when it is to be interpreted, this is why I mentioned about this California archives also, where people, young men and those who can pay money, they can have their oralities being recorded. That is being presented as a history. But that is not history. For instance, I'll give you, there's an interview by the descendant of Fakir's brothers. Fakirs are the most important administrator, prime minister during the time of Maharaja Ranjit Singh. The family knows in and out of the entire Lahore for that matter, Punjab for that matter. But the one who conducted the interview had no inkling about that person. So what happens that, and therein the trappings of disciplines come in. That is why I pleaded that is very well. When we go in for textual interpretation, we go up to the point of intertextuality, but then in so doing, we get swayed by theories coming from West. I'm sorry to say. So what happens that you are, as it has happened with subaltern studies, where you had many kind of Gayatri almost contesting the story of Ma Shweta Devi, saying that what she is saying is correct and what she has written is incorrect. So that kind of a postmodernist discourse needs to be shunned. Remember, this is being taken from the pages of history. And it's very, of course, this is tedious, it's a difficult process, but at the same time, when we we take up source as it exists, and then interconnectionness is being taken, time and space becomes very much important, and one can very well make it out that where, what happens that in orality when we are recording it, you have silences, and you have certain events being remembered. That becomes a kind of a family discourse, then it becomes community discourse for that matter. So we can very slowly and through historical methodology, as one can say that whatever is not written in sources, that can also be gleaned. So with this partition memories, this becomes very crucial for us. We need to be aware about this fact.
Yeah, please.
Namaskar, respected panel members. And my question is to you only. I have gone through several Pakistan-based YouTube vlogs. Okay, so they reflect a very strong, very dominant sense of realization of their cultural and devotional roots. So when they talk about Katas Raj in Multan or Nankana Sahib in Kartarpur Sahib, Hinglas Bhavani, etc., they are very, they have the realization where their roots come from. On the contrary, in India, the coming generations do not have that sense of belonging to that land. Okay, so the migrant families and those families, they don't have that such sense of belonging. So how can that sense of belonging can be developed through academia or beyond academia? And secondly, when the partition of Germany is undoable, is the partition of India also undoable?
Anyone would like to answer?
Because Amrit ma'am talked about identity.
This is kind of, you can say, query or the question with which Punjabis are grappling. Punjabiyat is a reality. It is lived. I can tell you from the perspective of Sikhs, for us what is known as Western or Lenda Punjab will remain very important because our roots, our ties are being there. In Sikhs, in daily prayers, we pray for the kind of upkeep of all Gurdwaras. And of course, as I told you, you have top media like channel where this person covers a lot of Sialkot. And one would say he's a neutral narrator. The honest guilt is there. They say that they lost people who were living there in 1947. Their physical spaces, as you can see, houses and temples have got all destroyed, they have been shown. He also accepted how temples have been desecrated. For instance, Lahore, Shitla temple was so huge. It was almost like as big as the whole of, you can say this entire space, not only this college, but many localities in the neighborhood also. More than 3,000 families are still living there, totally desegregated. So what happens there, we kind of, you could say, of course, in terms of curriculum, now they have started teaching again Gurumukhi. Punjabi is spoken by everyone. They write it in Shahamukhi for that matter. I am from Bhai Singh Satyasar and part of it. So we have, Dr. Manmohan Singh was our chairman. So that kind of linkages are being there. Efforts have been made. You can say that Kuldeep Nair spent his entire life keeping a vigil on the night of 14th August till the morning of 15th August. Efforts have been made, but the point is that how to purge is a bad word, but you take it how to establish link between state and society. Pakistan is a reality. We have gone our own independent, strong, democratic way. We don't hate people, but then you can say the problems are being there. The geopolitics and the important thing is that honest confession has to come from other side. What do you do with a situation when we were celebrating, I think 550th birth anniversary of Guru Nanak, and the daughter of Head Granthi of Nankana Sahib was forcefully kidnapped and converted and married. So despite these, you can say, traumatic events happening on day-to-day basis, yet we can't forego those gurdwaras. Majority has gone, but a few are still being left. I had gone there in Peace Mission in 2007, and at Thara Sahib in Lahore, I saw that the Nishan Sahib post was broken. So that was the reality, despite the fact they welcomed diasporic Sikh population from abroad, but they're very hesitant in letting us go there. And then they play identity politics. I remember I was told I could visit Thara Sahib. I went to Nankana Sahib also, but you can say Muslim colleagues refused to enter. So if you are kind of adhering to the same kind of identity which is monolith in terms of Muslims, and then the whole exercise becomes futile. Where do we go from here? So whether we can be one, given the present day politics and the situation, is a big question mark.
Thank you, Principal Saloni, for inviting us, and colleagues here and the students. What happened? It's better to look even from some other perspectives. मैं 2-3 को यहाँ पे साइट करूँगा. एक अंबेडकर पार्टीशन को कैसे देख रहे हैं, and some very interesting facts. राणा डे, गांधी और जिन्ना में उनके एक पतला सा पैम्फलेट है जिसके प्रीफेस में वो लिख रहे हैं, and I am quoting him. I hate Mr. Gandhi. This is Ambedkar saying, I hate Mr. Gandhi and Mr. Jinnah. I dislike them because I love India more. Country is greater than men. 1943 में उनका ये 43 में उनका प्रीफेस है, राणा डे, गांधी एंड जिन्ना. उसके बाद क्या कह रहे हैं वो इस पार्टीशन पाकिस्तान और पार्टीशन के बारे में, उनकी जो किताब है पास, मैं उससे कोट कर रहा हूं, पाकिस्तान और द पार्टीशन ऑफ इंडिया. और उस पे उनका एक क्वेश्चन रेज कर रहे हैं, हाउ सब्सटैंशियल इन ट्रूथ इज यूनिटी बिटवीन हिंदूज एंड मुस्लिम्स. ये जो गांधी और नेहरू का सेक्युलरिज्म चल रहा था, उसके ऊपर ये अंबेडकर कह रहे हैं. मैं उनको कोट कर रहा हूं. 1920 to 40 के बीच का ये पीरियड वो कर रहे हैं. सच बारबेरिक mutual violence shows an utter lack of unity. This is remarkable observations. We must look from the other perspectives as well. हम अपनी आंखों से देखते हैं, 1857 को हम अपने नजरिए से देखते हैं. वेस्ट के अंदर अखबारों में उस जमाने में क्या लिखा जा रहा था, इसको हम नहीं पढ़ते। ये भी इक्वली जानना जरूरी है रिसर्च स्कॉलर्स के लिए, पढ़ाने वालों के लिए और पढ़ने वालों के लिए भी, हाउ होलिस्टिक एंड ऑब्जेक्टिविटी इट इज प्रेजेंटेड। कितने आप उसमें दे रहे हैं। आई एम नॉट टॉकिंग अबाउट बेयरफुट एम्पिरिसिज्म, जो बिहेवियरल रिवोल्यूशन बेयरफुट एम्पिरिसिज्म ला रहा है, मैं उसकी बात नहीं कर रहा हूं। देयर मस्ट बी एन एनालिसिस, बट इट मस्ट बी होलिस्टिक एंड ऑब्जेक्टिव। आगे क्या कह रहे हैं अम्बेडकर? हिंदुस्तान एंड पाकिस्तान वुड बी ए स्ट्रॉन्गर, more homogeneous units if there is a transfer of population. Here is Ambedkar who is talking of transfer of population. Have we ever called him communal? But when Patel talked about transfer of population, just indicated he was branded as communal. आगे वो बता रहे हैं, मुस्लिम सोसाइटी इज फुल ऑफ सोशल एविल्स. No organized movement of social reforms among the Muslims have taken place in the last 20 years. पार्टीशन को कॉमरेड्स ने, सीपीआई ने सपोर्ट किया था, कभी इसकी चर्चा नहीं होती है. CPI had supported partition because what Bhuvan was saying, that Muslims as a nationality, not as a religious form, but as a nationality उसको बना के सपोर्ट किया था CPI ने जब पार्टीशन का मुद्दा आया था 1946 में. And more than that, they were asking for 16 constituent assemblies. Not 2, but 16 constituent assemblies based on the 16 linguistic provinces of India. उनके हिसाब से. एम.एन. रॉय क्या कह रहे हैं? 18 सितंबर 1949, एक सप्ताह मरने के बाद 11 सितंबर को जिन्ना मर गया है. I have no respect for that. He died, मुंह पे मक्खी भिनभिना रही थी और दूर दूर तक 1-2-3 घंटे तक कोई आदमी नहीं था. कर्म का फल नतीजा तो मिलना था, मिलेगा, हर को मिलता है, इसी धरती पे मिलता है. 18 सितंबर को इंडिपेंडेंट इंडिया में एम.एन. रॉय लिख रहे हैं, आफ्टर द डेथ ऑफ जिन्ना, एंड आई एम पुटिंग हिम, जिन्ना के बारे में, थॉरो सेक्युलर इन हिज पर्सनल डोमेन. सुअर का मांस खाते थे, गाय का तो मांस खाता ही था, शराब और सिगरेट, ट्यूबरकुलोसिस था. What he is saying, he desecularized nationalism. M.N. Roy, Independent India, 18 September 1949, from Dehradun, published from Dehradun after the death of Jinnah, desecularized nationalism. अब थोड़ा सा 2-3 मिनट में, and then I'll wind up, bullet points. शुरू कहां से हुआ, जड़ कहां से है? 3-4 पॉइंट्स हैं. नंबर 1, 1857 के कॉलेप्स के बाद जब मोनार्की को एबॉलिश कर दिया जाता है, एलीट स्ट्रक्चर जो था भारत का, ट्रेडिशनल एलीट स्ट्रक्चर, जिसमें डोमिनेंट पोजीशन मुस्लिम एलीट का था, सैयद, और सबऑर्डिनेट पोजीशन हिंदू एलीट या नॉन मुस्लिम एलीट का था, वो ट्रेडिशनल फ्यूडल एलीट स्ट्रक्चर नॉबिलिटी दैट collapses. That was a false hope for the feudal nobility, Muslim nobility. 1803 के बाद पेंशनर हो गया था मुगल बादशाह. पेंशनर मतलब नौकरी पेशा, पेंशन मिल रहा है. But there was a false hope among the Muslim nobility, the feudal traditional Muslim nobility. ये यहां पे है। 1857 आफ्टर द एबॉलिशन खत्म, वो होप खत्म हो गया था। देयर वाज ए क्राइसिस ऑफ द एलीट, द फ्यूडल मुस्लिम नॉबिलिटी, द सैयद्स। Here I am not talking about the 95% of the Muslim majority, the Arjal and the Pasmanda Samaj. I am talking about the 2.5%, the nobility who came from Central Asian republics. मैं उनकी बात कर रहा हूं, जो पिछले करीब 650 साल में, यानी 1192 के बाद से जब सल्तनत दिल्ली में आई है, 666 years or 67 years till 1857-58, रफली 667-66 साल रहा है। इस बीच में 2.5 से 3% बाहर की मुस्लिम नॉबिलिटी आके रूल की है, और औरंगजेब के जमाने में सतीश चंद्रा के हिसाब से मैक्सिमम नन मुस्लिम नॉबिलिटी थी 30%। औरंगजेब के दरबार में 70% मुस्लिम डोमिनेंट नॉबिलिटी थी। Therefore, if you look at the elite structure in India, that was brutally majority dominated by the Muslim nobility who were outsiders. And the 95 of course were converted. ये जो collapse किया है, और साथ में with the rise of, on the pretext of vernacularization, linguistics, language के माध्यम से जो subaltern rise किया है भारत के अंदर में, this was a felt threat, जिसे कहते हैं ना आजकल वो हिंदी political science की भाषा में felt community. So this was a felt imaginary threat to the मुस्लिम नॉबिलिटी कि हमारे हाथ से पावर गया और अब न्यू हिंदू एलीट हमारे ऊपर में रूल करेगा। जो दर्द उनका छलका है 1896 का, जो कांग्रेस का प्रेसिडेंशियल एड्रेस है रहीमतुल्लाह सयानी का, गूगल पे अवेलेबल है, आप देख सकते हैं। उनकी फीलिंग ये है कि कल तक जो रियाया थी वो हमारे समकक्ष बराबर बैठेगा। सर सैयद अहमद खान ये बार बार रिपीट कर रहे हैं। दे द नेशनल कांग्रेस 1887, सर सैयद अहमद खान, मैं उनको कोट कर रहा हूं लखनऊ में, दे वांट टू कॉपी द इंग्लिश हाउस ऑफ लॉर्ड्स एंड द हाउस ऑफ कॉमन्स। ये कह रहे हैं कि भारत में भी डेमोक्रेटाइजेशन होना चाहिए, और ये कह रहे हैं कि हाउ कैन द कांग्रेस फोर्स द अनविलिंग माइनॉरिटी। मुसलमानों का जो फ्यूडल नॉबिलिटी थी, पूरे पसमंदा समाज का भी ठेका लेके ये बैठ गए, अनविलिंग माइनॉरिटी, और प्रिटेक्स्ट दे रहे हैं अनहोमोजेनाइज्ड। दिस फर्स्ट वर्ड and the concepts and the idea or the pretext he has been using frequently till his death. वो कह रहे हैं कि ये कौम है, एक religious political कौम है, which is separate. Time and again calling Arabia, कि हमारे खून में अरबिया का वर्ड खून दौड़ रहा है हमारी नसों में। दूसरा ये कह रहे हैं कि चमार हमारे साथ आके बैठेगा। मैं उनको कोट कर रहा हूं, ये अवेलेबल, जिनको सोर्सेज चाहिए हमसे ले सकते हैं। मैं सोर्सेज उनको बता देता हूं। ये सारे जो सोर्सेज हैं उनके स्पीचेस लखनऊ में 28/12/87 को डिलीवर किए गए थे। एम जैदी की एडिटेड किताब है फ्रॉम सैयद टू एमरजेंस ऑफ जिन्ना वॉल्यूम 1, मिचको एंड पंजथान, न्यू दिल्ली 1975, पेजेस 39-40। और ये पब्लिश्ड आर्टिकल है जहां से मैं आपको पढ़ के सुना रहा हूं। सो द फाउंडेशन स्टोन, आधारशिला 19th सेंचुरी में सर सैयद अहमद खान ने रखी थी। लुक एट द ट्रेजिक पार्ट, उनके खिलाफ मुल्लाओं का फतवा था कि लड़की को पढ़ाने के लिए स्कूल खोल रहे हैं। एक तरफ उनके खिलाफ मुल्लाओं का फतवा था कि लड़कियों को पढ़ाने के लिए रिफॉर्म्स करना चाह रहे हैं, और दूसरी तरफ politically he is not supporting the moderate Congress which was asking for the democratization of India, beginning of the legislative bodies. बाद में जिन्होंने पिकअप किया सारी कहानी, ये तीनों लोगों ने आपको मिलकर बता दी, that won't be repeated. Regarding Germany, and with this I will wind up, जर्मनी का केस मैम डिफरेंट है. वो इसलिए डिफरेंट है कि बाय 1990 और इवन अर्लियर जर्मनी वाज ए मच डेवलप्ड कंट्री, नंबर वन. नंबर टू, जो जर्मनी का पार्टीशन हुआ था वो 4 देशों ने मिलके आपस में तय किया था. ये म्यूचुअल कंसेंसुअल नहीं हुआ था बिटवीन द पीपल और द रूलिंग पार्टी ऑफ जर्मनी. आउटसाइडर्स ने आके उसको फॉर स्ट्रेटेजिक रीजंस तोड़ दिया था. भारत में म्यूचुअल कॉन्सेंट से पार्टीशन हुआ है, जिसमें थर्ड पार्टी ऑफ कोर्स कॉलोनियल स्टेट था. सो देयर इज ए डिफरेंस बिटवीन द केस ऑफ जर्मनी एंड द केस ऑफ इंडिया. एंड ऑफ कोर्स जो एलीट का पावर स्ट्रगल का कंसिक्वेंसेस था भारत की और पाकिस्तान की, या हिंदू या मुसलमान गरीब जनता रियाया ने अपने से सफर करके उसको भोगा, और अभी तक हम भोग रहे हैं. विद दिस आई एंड अप. थैंक यू वेरी मच.
बहुत बहुत आभार सर. एक जोरदार ताली सभी पैनल के लिए और हमारे चेयरपर्सन के लिए. आप इस कार्यक्रम को आगे बढ़ाती हुए मैं प्रोफेसर ज्योति तिरहान शर्मा, ज्वाइंट डायरेक्टर, सेंटर फॉर इंडिपेंडेंस एंड पार्टीशन.
नमस्कार. वोट ऑफ थैंक्स, धन्यवाद ज्ञापन एक फॉर्मेलिटी माना जाता है, पर मैं इस फॉर्मेलिटी को फॉर्मेलिटी नहीं कहूँगी, क्योंकि मैं मॉर्निंग से कुछ स्टूडेंट्स के पेशेंट्स को बहुत देर से देख रही हूँ. एंड फ्रॉम द बॉटम ऑफ माई हार्ट आई थैंक यू ऑल फॉर बीइंग हियर, बीइंग ऑल्सो अ लिटिल इम्पेशेंट समटाइम्स, because I think that's pretty natural, because Gen Z is taken to be impatient. And but be impatient with what is being given to you, what you are learning, and maybe where you have to question, where you have to have a reflective perspective. So be impatient there. तो हिमांशु सर ने परमिट कर दिया था कि आप इधर उधर विचरण ना करें, अपना मोबाइल देख सकते हैं, और बीच में किसी ने खाना भी खा लिया और बाल भी बना लिए. तो पर फिर भी अच्छा, मैम कह रही हाँ प्ले देखेंगे इसके बाद जरूर. हाँ, ये तो मैं बीच में थोड़ा सा बस जो सर ने इनको परमिट किया था वो थोड़ा सा बताया, बस मैं वोट ऑफ थैंक्स करके. हाँ हाँ, आप बाहर नहीं जा सकते, प्ले देखेंगे जो बहुत मेहनत से बच्चों ने बनाया है. बट थैंक यू फॉर दैट पेशेंस सिंस मॉर्निंग. Saloni ji, you started on a very good note this morning when you referred to refugee perspective. I belong to a family who bore this pain of partition. Both my maternal parents and paternal side, both have been uprooted from that side of undivided India. मेरे दादाजी को रिफ्यूजी शब्द कभी समझ नहीं आया. उनको लगता था कि मेरा तो घर उजड़ा है, घर छोड़ रहा हूँ, देश तो मेरा वही है, मैं बस एक जगह से दूसरी जगह मजबूर कर दिया गया हूँ जाने के लिए. पर मुझे रिफ्यूजी क्यों? क्योंकि जहाँ मैं पहुँच गया, जहाँ मैं बैठा, मुझे कितनों ने जतलाया ये तुम्हारी जगह नहीं है, ये ज़मीन भी तुम्हारी नहीं है, ये हवा भी तुम्हारी नहीं है, ये पानी भी तुम्हारा नहीं है. लेकिन इन सब दुविधाओं से आगे बढ़ते हुए I think I'm very proud of my grandparents, both sides, my parents, who invested literally, because education could be the only medium by which we could empower ourselves. The pain of partition can never be forgotten. आप सिर्फ पल भर को, एक पल को सोच के देखिए, आंख मूंद के या खुली आंखों से भी, अगर यहाँ से आप अपने घर ना लौट पाएं, तो बहुत लोगों के साथ ऐसा हुआ कि वो जहाँ थे वहीं से कहीं ना कहीं और भेज दिए गए या कहीं भी नहीं पहुँचे। बहुत सारे उस जर्नी में, उस यात्रा में बहुत सारे बिछड़ गए। यहाँ पर एक छोटी सी कविता जो 15 अगस्त के मायनों को समझाने की कोशिश करती है, आपके साथ साझा करूंगी। ये भारत की आज़ादी की एक दिन पहले हमारे भारत रत्न श्री अटल बिहारी वाजपेयी जी ने ये कविता लिखी थी और उन्होंने लिखा था, 15 अगस्त का दिन कहता है आज़ादी अभी अधूरी है, सपने सच खोने बाकी हैं, रावी की शपथ न पूरी है। दिन दूर नहीं, खंडित भारत को पुनः अखंड बनाएंगे, गिलगित से गारो पर्वत तक आज़ादी पर्व मनाएंगे। उस स्वर्ण दिवस के लिए आज से कमर कसे बलिदान करें, जो पाया उसमें खो ना जाएं, जो खोया उसका ध्यान करें। क्योंकि कभी कभी जिन परिस्थितियों में हम रहते हैं, ऐसा नहीं है उनमें बदलाव नहीं आ सकता, ऐसा नहीं है कि कुछ और दोबारा नहीं हो सकता, लेकिन वो दोबारा नहीं हो तो उसके लिए जद्दोजहद, उसके लिए मेहनत हमसे भी ज़्यादा आपको करनी होगी। उस कल, सुनहरे कल की जो आप परिकल्पना करते हैं, उसमें एक बहुत बड़ा योगदान आपका ही होगा। पर हमने क्या खोया था? 15 अगस्त को क्या खोया था? बहुत कुछ, बहुत कुछ। कहते हैं उल्लास का दिन था, पर जो कुछ खोया उसका तो हिसाब ही नहीं लगाया जा सकता। थोड़ा सा अगर कहूँ तो माँ गंगा इधर रह गई और सिंधु उधर ही रह गई। धोलीवारा, कालीबंगा इस पार, हड़प्पा और मोहनजोदारो उधर, नालंदा, विक्रमशिला इधर और तक्षशिला वहीं छूट गया। और सुबह हमारे चीफ गेस्ट डॉक्टर स्वप्न दास गुप्ता ने रेफर किया था, शक्तिपीठ के बारे में बात कर रहे थे, तो उसी तरह जिस तरह बाबा अमरनाथ हमें इधर मिल गए, तो शारदा मठ उधर ही छूट गया। तो बहुत कुछ छूट गया है हमारा उधर। और इससे बेहतर कौन जानेगा कि जब भी हम लोग अपने राष्ट्रगान, अपने नेशनल एंथम के लिए खड़े होते हैं, तो इट सेज पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड़ उत्कल बंगा। पंजाब तो थोड़ा बहुत वापस इधर मिल गया, लेकिन सिंध पूरी तरह चला गया। वो नहीं है, वो हमारे सिर्फ एक विरासत का हिस्सा है, लेकिन लैंग्वेज में है, हमारे खान पान में है, हमारे साथ लोग, फैमिलीज हैं, लेकिन सिंध जिसे हम एक अटूट हिस्सा मानते थे, वो अब नहीं है। तो ये खोने पाने की एक बहुत ही कठिन यात्रा रही है। सेंटर फॉर इंडिपेंडेंस एंड पार्टीशन स्टडीज इस यात्रा में आप सबको साथ लेकर चलना चाहता है कि अगर आपको ऐसा लगे कि आपके आसपास कोई भी ऐसा विस्थापित परिवार रहता है जिनमें बुजुर्ग हैं जो शायद बिल्कुल एक अधेड़ उम्र की कगार पर हैं और हम उनके कोई ओरल नैरेटिव्स कलेक्ट कर सकते हैं, तो हमें बहुत खुशी होगी, बहुत अच्छा लगेगा कि हम उनके उस व्याख्यान को, उन मेमोरीज को संजो सके आगे आने वाले समय के लिए। So on that note, I think on behalf of the center, I would join my director, Professor Ravindra Kumar, in extending this vote of thanks to each one of you. First and foremost, I would like to thank our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Sir, Professor Yogesh Singh, whose vision was actually a catalyst in establishing this center. I'm extremely grateful also to Professor Shri Prakash Singh, who is the chairperson of our governing body, and each thing, whatever is minutely perceived by us, he tries to put it into action. This morning, it was great to hear Dr. Swapna Das Gupta as our chief guest this morning. So I would thank him also in absentia. And all my thanks are due to Professor Himanshu Roy in the second session, who chaired the session, and to Professor Amrit Kaur Basra, to Professor Varun Gulati, and to Dr. Bhuvan Jha for their presentations. I also would like to thank the team that collaborated with us in this college. My gratitude and thanks to Dr. Anuranjita Vadva, who is the coordinator for this program from the college, and to Dr. Shalu Kaur, who is the co-coordinator, and to the entire organizing team from Professor Sangeet Sarita, Dr. Deepti Singh, Ms. Luke Khanna, Dr. Bindu Kohli, Dr. Indu Baghel, Dr. Shailaja Singh, Dr. Vibha Maurya, Dr. Anuradha Singh, Ms. Ankita Singh, Mr. Ajit Kumar, Mr. Jatin, Ms. Tanzin, Mr. Vimlok, Mr. Akshat, and Dr. Raman. Thank you so much. It has been a great pleasure to be in this college, and we look forward to having many more programs in this domain so that we can all listen to the reality of partition. विभाजन के सच को हम और जान सके. Thank you so much.